Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Battle for Azeroth has really had a lot of time to stew, to settle down a bit. It's long enough since the announcement that I think we can sit back and give it a fair shake of the stick. So rather than split all these topics up, I'm just going to do one big video going through the stuff that I'm really excited about and the stuff that I'm a little bit worried about. But we're going to start off with something that's positive, less green. We've been fighting the Burning Legion since Hellfire Citadel, which was June 2015, and we've seen, a pretty heavy Legion presence in the game since the launch of Warlords, of course. I mean, man, there's just been so much green and black in the game with the art style. Finally, it looks like we're actually going to have something a bit different for battle. I really am getting kind of fatigued with the Legion theme, so having something fresh is really great. The new zones all seemed pretty damn distinct and varied. The first raid is a Troll Titan themed one, which again is pretty different. We're getting more Old God elements, and we know a shower's going to show up. So this stuff's all a nice visual and just change of pace in terms of the feel for the game. And for me, I'm excited because I think that will help it keep fresh. Next, something I'm worried about, Warfronts. So I love the concept of Warfronts, I love the vibe that they're trying to go with, but I can't let myself get caught up in how much I think that's a cool thing. Looking at these as a feature, I'm really worried about the longevity. How fun will they be on repeat playthroughs? How challenging are they going to be? Essentially, I'm just kind of worried about how these are actually going to fit into the game overall and be cool, in a longer, more appealing way than just them being a bit of a gimmick, right? Lasting in the same way the dungeon and raid content can last. The only reason why I think this is perhaps something I'm worried about is because I'm worried that it will not be worth the amount of development time that's actually being put in. Of course, they were kind of vague about it, and we'll just need to wait and see what the system actually is like. Fortunately, my worry is somewhat helped by the fact that islands look awesome, so the other big feature seems pretty cool. This is supposed to be the most replayable content in World of Warcraft to date, with a combination of allowing, a mythic difficulty, varied objectives, all that being paired with new enemy AI, to essentially have it so that islands, what they really are, is a puzzle. A new puzzle is generated every time for a team of 3 to solve. That seems awesome. They've got some really cool gameplay modifiers as well, even stuff that will, as an example, make a mage be able to heal. Super cool. Now, for me, who is someone who doesn't have a massive amount of time to game because of work, well, I still love challenging content. These on either Mythic or PvP seem like the ideal complement to doing Mythic plus dungeons for me, and I think this could be a real expansion of the day-to-day gameplay of World of Warcraft for a lot of people. Now, I am slightly worried that in practice, they might feel too different to content that we've got. Maybe the enemy AI will not be as interesting as what they're saying at the minute, and, just generally the system may not translate into reality perfectly because of those randomized elements, but what they pitched seemed pretty damn compelling. Okay, time for another worry. World quests. They're fine. They're just fine. Oh god, they're so unexciting, and they still feel years behind what Guild Wars 2 was able to do with world content when it launched. It just doesn't seem like the team are innovating at all with this system, at least based on BlizzCon, and instead they're just carrying the Legion incarnation forward. Now, yes, it was a massive step up over Warlords of Draenor daily quests, sure. I don't think they compare favorably to equivalent systems in other MMOs, and I think this is the more important bit, they don't compare favorably to other solo gameplay opportunities in other game genres, which World of Warcraft is still, they're still competing against WoW, so I think they really have to up their game when it comes to the quality, the dynamicism, just the interactivity of the world quest content. And you know what, let's just go do another worry. Vagueness. When I asked my Twitter followers what had them worried and excited about the expansion on the worry camp, vagueness was the largest response. The team was quite vague about the literal implementation of many systems, as much as they did talk about Warfronts for a while. We don't really know how Warfronts actually slot into the wider game. And I think this vagueness has also impacted some people's perception of the story as well. Many people think this is a big PvP expansion. Well, a shower is going to turn up. We know that. It seems like what we're really dealing with at the start is the local problems of the Kultirans and the Zandalari as a means of getting them on our side with this war. I don't think Blizzard really communicated that fantasy well and maybe accidentally sold a PvP expansion to people. And now in terms of some systems, I saw a lot of underwhelmed reactions from some of the higher end raiders and raid guilds that I follow on Twitter, and much of this was due to a lack of specifics, and of course the Titan Forging does still exist. We sort of got a grab bag of cool sounding features, but I don't think they did a great job of communicating the overall vision of how do you play Battle for Azeroth at level 110? Why is it exciting, and what's, like, on a day-to-day sort of basis, different and new feeling? This next point is not something that's new, but it is something that I'm very excited about. Mythic Plus was, for me, one of the best damn systems in Legion. I love it. Imagine how much better Warlords of Draenor would have been if Mythic Plus existed. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that it would actually kind of work. Anyway, Blizzard said that the Battle for Azeroth dungeons are going to be designed more around the fact that Mythic Plus exists as a system, which I'm very hyped about, and I'd love to see what this actually means in terms of the specific implementation, especially, could it mean, say, getting content variation, maybe problem-solving challenges within a dungeon, not just affixes, though for affixes, of course, getting a new set of affixes would be very cool, but what I love, though, is that now that Mythic Plus has been sort of field-tested, they know they can go all in on it and make it the best that it can be, which is brilliant. Okay, next, communities. I'm super hyped about this, and I think a lot of you will be once it actually comes out. This really is one of my favorite new additions, and a part of that, of course, is that I do YouTube. Now, as much as Discord is an amazing service, having something in-game, like the new WoW communities, especially with in-game calendar integration and all of that, well, that seems great. Just the ease of it being literally in-game. It's perfect. It means you can do mass invites, you can organize events, all this stuff. I just think it's going to be brilliant. I can make a Horde and Alliance community for the viewers of the channel so we can play together, and what's great is you can be in as many communities as you want. No one has to make a big choice about, joining a guild. I mean, sort of like leaving their guild to join another one in the case of like a YouTube viewer guild, which is my point of view in this. Everyone can come in because it's a community. I think this could be a really next level enhancement to the in-game like group formation and friend making. And as much as this isn't going to grab headlines, I can see this, I actually can see why this got a prominent spot in the con, because the social glue is really what holds an MMO together, and it's great to see them investing in that. Alright, gearing. I'm excited about gearing. Right, legendaries, they're dead. Holy crap, brilliant. Of course, tier sets, they're killed off, and that's just the cherry on top. From a systems point of view, I think it's great, though. I'm a little bit sad that there might be less class-specific art initially, but anyway, so that stuff's happened. The Azerite gear system, for me, seems like a great way to keep those extra mechanics in-game, but present them to people in a way that gives you more options and more customization, which seems great. I'm doubly happy that Azerite gear doesn't Titan Forge, so for those 3 Azerite gear slots, the content that you do really matters, and that will differentiate players, which I think is good. It gives you something to really aim for. And of course, their traits, there's no randomness, they're just handcrafted. Perfect. And then, of course, for Titan Forging, they're going to, I think, decrease the both the frequency and amount of it so that it's like a less of an overbearing system on the game, which again, I think is great. It's a step in the right direction. If we're not going to be able to get it removed from the game or a large change, how about we just step it back a little bit? I think that's an incremental victory. Overall, though, it means, yeah, I'm pretty damn excited about gearing up my characters in this expansion. Okay, so this is both worried and excited. The Heart of Azeroth. So I enjoyed the initial artifact leveling in Legion, but I did not like the infinite traits. Blizzard pretty much agrees, and that's the model that's being used for the Heart of Azeroth, which sounds great, okay, but in that case, how is the progression going to last? I don't know, I'm not sure. One assumes that you'll be able to mostly cap out your Heart of Azeroth within a month or two, so after that, how do they offer continued progression without going down the Legion infinite trait route? Kind of tricky. I think it's, it is something I'm mostly excited about overall. I'm a bit worried about how they deal with that problem, though. I do have to wonder if they're okay with you just capping out your Heart of Azeroth neck piece, but then the cool gameplay is that you get a new bit of Azerite gear, and you get to play around with the traits. Perhaps that could be the route that they go, and if they do go that route, I think it would actually be kind of great. Alright, lore. I'm really damn excited about the lore. I love the idea of us tearing each other to shreds while all these nefarious forces are plotting our downfall, like, in the sewers or whatever, wherever their old gods are. Really, I just think the types of storytelling that involve sort of teasing players with mysteries and hints and things bubbling underneath the surface, I think they're really interactive and engaging, a lot more so than just a simple, it's, black and white, go kill Space Satan before he ends the universe, which is a bit boring. Of course, they're different types of stories, but I think if we've got loads of angry space Satan tier threats again and again, then the game just feels like it's the same story with a different coat of paint. So for me, having 8.0, being a bit less concerned with impending doom, I think that will be a fresh change of pace, and it will hopefully let us really immerse ourselves in the stories of these new zones and the new characters that we meet, and get more rich lore, which is something that, as much as a lot of people didn't like the setting of Pandaria, it actually, from a lore perspective, was really quite immersive and well thought out. Okay, there's another worry though. 3 leveling zones. Currently, each faction has 3 level up zones in their continent. Some of the narrative stuff does take place on the other continent, and there is this thing called the War campaign, which is, I think, kind of like your Order Hall campaign. Now, this sounds great for one character, super engaging and fun, but I will admit I'm a bit worried about alts. It doesn't seem like there's much room for variation here if there's only 3 zones. Now, Blizzard has to know this is a potential problem, and I've got to imagine they'll have some sort of solution in place. But still, I'm a little bit worried about it. Okay, next, characters. Okay, telling more character-focused stories is one of the goals that they talked about with this expansion. Going back to Blizzard's past work, I think it's rarely the big epic moments that have made characters memorable on more than a superficial level. What made, I think, for a lot of people, the Warcraft 3 characters great is you spent a whole bunch of time with them, right? And you sort of saw them grow. Warcraft the MMO has always struggled to really live up to the stories and the characters of the RTS, which is kind of funny because as a genre, real-time strategy is not known for storytelling at all. But anyway, seeing Christy Golden be attached not just to the IP as an author for tie-in models, but to the actual game as a decently senior writer, from what I understand, that's pretty damn exciting, especially considering the characters that she's going to be covering in this expansion. Okay, another topic of worry, the release date. I'm a little bit worried about this. BlizzCon was a little vague in some ways with the information, which I covered here. And now, that said, there was a good chunk playable. But I'm a little bit worried that, well, as an example, they just bumped back the book's release date to June from May. Now, I'd been hoping for a late summer release, maybe August. A part of me is now worried that might be a few months more. You see, Legion hit beta really soon after BlizzCon, and it was an August release date. It doesn't look like we'll see that pattern again based on how long a beta usually takes. Are they really going to kick a beta off in December right after Antorus? Probably not. Now, the saving grace here is they could have something up their sleeve with 7.3.5 and the pre-patch for Battle for Azeroth. 7.3.5 coming out in early 2018, and then maybe a pre-patch coming out a month and a bit before the expansion. Yeah, that certainly would help to bridge the gap, and I guess that one of the differences between Legion and, say, Warlords is at least we got things like Mythic Plus, which will be engaging for longer. But still, a part of me is just a little bit worried about that release date. Next, World PvP. Okay, so the ability for the developers to properly work on World PvP content is super, super exciting to me. Previously, there was a worry with the devs that if they make World PvP content, what's it doing in PvE servers? How does that work? Also, they had big worries about faction balance. Basically, their thought was that the base conditions for good World PvP content were not there. Now, this brings us on to differing perceptions of what people want from World PvP, and this is where I disagree with some people. What I personally want is the world to be populated with various objectives and goals that players can naturally fight over. I want a loose, freeform system for World PvP that will let me log in, go to war for a few hours with other players, and get some rewards. So that's what I want, but for others, it's not what they want. The thought is that people on PvP servers in the new system will just turn it off to level, and that in doing so, a type of World PvP will just be deleted. It's easy to say that these people are just sad because they want to gank noobs and they might not be able to do that as much, but I don't really think that's a super fair characterization of it. We'll have to see. I do get the thought, though, that, yeah, it's like a more freeform World PvP that isn't a system is something that people are attached to because it's been in the game for a very long time, but I think that if you make PvP a big sandbox activity with loose objectives across the entire world, that could really create a new gameplay category for World of Warcraft, and I think that would be a really, a big quantum leap in, one area of its gameplay. And then, of course, when we're talking about the world, well, I'm really damn excited about the leveling revamp. I think one of World of Warcraft's greatest problems is that it just gives a terrible first impression from a gameplay standpoint. I mean, wow, they actually expect people to play the free trial and stick with it? That's mad. As you level, it just falls to pieces. You zoom past zones, you lose out in the story, the whole thing's a mess, the gameplay sucks. Well, this problem pretty much seems to be fixed with the new level scaling system, and this just patches up a long-standing problem for the game. You see, the 1 through 60 content is pretty good, but the gameplay doesn't shine. Now, of course, when we move on to other stuff, like Outland does show its age, and I'd be keen to see if, say, in the 60 to 80 bracket, would we be able to just level through that whole bracket in Northrend only and skip out Outland, which would give people loads of options when they're leveling up alts. I think that would be pretty cool. But overall, for me, it's like there's this cool world of Warcraft, but the systems were not done well, so you couldn't really enjoy the World of Warcraft in like a good gameplay setting. If they fix that, then yeah, that's massive. And I suppose when we're on the topic of scaling and systems, the stat squish. I'm so excited for this. I know that sounds a bit odd, but I loved it just when WoW launched and we were doing reasonable numbers, and I really want to return to that. When I started off, playing the game, the end game properly of World of Warcraft, it was like late TBC and Wrath, so you were doing numbers in the thousands, and that kind of, to me, I kind of, go back to that. But what's more important is sort of the designer brain in me, is more thinking about the visual clarity and sort of how large numbers get. The more that you continue to display large numbers with a level of precision, then the detail there that you're showing doesn't really matter, which makes it less clear to read. I'd love it if Blizzard decreased as well the expansion-wide number bloat. I think that right now, there's actually just too much of a gap between a new 110 character and a geared 110 character. I get there's got to be a good progression there, but I think that having it be so massive kind of makes it hard to get in the gearing ladder in some ways. And back in the day, in, Wrath TBC, I don't think we had as massive power deltas as we sort of get today. Then I suppose I'm also, pretty excited for the new character customization stuff. Allied races seem to be a great move, especially because they're being introduced as more of a game system than just, oh, we're adding in some new races. And as in, the Allied Races system seems to be something that they're like, they put it in with the intention of it being added to as time goes on. I think that's kind of great. Leveling up a new Allied Race character in combination with a new level scaling system is, it's pretty much just the perfect way to do it, isn't it? And it's also a clever way to sort of get people to replay content and create new gameplay for people while not putting a massive amount of time into it. Like, some of the sub-races, there's not a massive amount new about them, but it seems like a very smart system. Though I do think, for me, the one thing that would really make sub-races next level, or allied races next level, is if maybe you had a racial quest. Like a quest line, maybe you get a new one every 10 levels or something like that. I think that would be a way to really just add some more rich lore and quality to these to make them more of a content-rich option, so you actually do get to experience something new the first time you, say, level up a Lightforged Draenei. So yeah, that really is mostly it for me. Overall, I think it's looking really solid, but here's the funny thing. Even if Warfronts and Islands are a complete dud, like straight in the pit, in the bin rubbish, we'll just be left with Legion's mix of world quests, Mythic plus dungeons and raids, plus some new PvP stuff. That's kind of great. Basically, if these new features don't pan out, well, Legion's actually established a solid enough baseline for the quality of the content and the systems to allow for this experimentation to happen, and for that experimentation to not be catastrophic if it doesn't pan out. Look at Warlords of Draenor. They did experimentation when the base systems of the game weren't really up to snuff. When that experimentation failed with garrisons, they were kind of left with their pants down, and it was very hard to pick up from that. Well, now the base World of Warcraft experience is good enough that, yeah, you can throw a Warfront in, you can try island expeditions, and, maybe one of them will pan out, maybe one of them will be rubbish, but overall, it's not really much of a loss because the base game, the dungeons, like the bread and butter content, is still good. So, there you go. I think actually that might be Legion's lasting legacy when we look back on this, like, in, years in the future. Anyway, guys, let me know what you're hyped about, what you're worried about with Battle for Azeroth, and with that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.